75% of digital transformations fail in organizations. And they fail not because the people in those organizations don't have brilliant ideas, because you cannot change business models until you change mental models. And one of the challenges that we have is that people have been trained for a world that no longer really exists, a steady state environment. And we've lived in a period of pretty much peace for the last 5, 6 decades. And now we're coming into a period of utter change, and that means we need different mindsets, and therefore we need different talent. And I'm going to welcome to the stage our panelists that have been chosen to exactly discuss that topic today. So welcome to the stage, guys, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So as they're introducing themselves, I'm going to ask them to introduce their name, the organization they're representing, and why they're on this panel. So Thane, over to you.
Hi, I'm Thane Campbell. I'm the Dean at Deep Science Ventures, where we are a venture creator. We're global and decentralized, having built 39 companies in cities around the world in deep tech sectors like climate, agriculture, computation, pharmaceuticals. The companies are backed by Bill Gates and Elon Musk, Sam Altman, Patrick Collison, and others. And I really saw an opportunity to come on and build a college within our organization where we are now delivering the Venture Science Doctorate, which is a 3-year PhD program where you build your own science company specifically to tackle a global challenge. Thanks.
Thank you, Thane.
So, hi. Is it on? Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Eriksson, and I'm the founder and head of KTH Innovation, the Innovation Support Department at the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm. I'm also CEO of the investment arm of the university, so we also have an investment offer so we can invest in spin-offs from the university. So I don't know how many of you have heard about KTH, but it's the largest and oldest technical university in Sweden. We are considered to be one of Stockholm is considered to be one of the top innovation ecosystems, and we are situated in the very heart of Stockholm. I think one thing that is something that I will talk about here is that we have a very different mindset when it comes to innovation and how you support innovation. We work very hard to enable innovation instead of controlling it and maximizing profit from it. And we have a Swedish model called the professor's privilege, which means that all IP actually lies with the researchers, including the PhDs and basically everyone involved in research, not with the university. And this is regulated by Swedish law since 1949. So this has been the case for a long time. And of course, since we don't claim ownership, we need to be very careful on how we support these researchers. But of course, as a university, we are relying on access to this IP that is created by our researchers. And yeah, I will be happy to share our experiences of building this innovation office, and yeah, I look forward to hear more from my fellow colleagues here.
Thank you, Lisa.
Hi everyone, I'm Julie. Only my teachers call me Juliana, so unless you want to get my full attention, please don't call me Juliana, it stresses me out. I'm working in SG Innovate. I've been with the company for 10 years. It's the longest for me. And if you want to know more about SG Innovate and the wonderful things we do, please get on our website and read more about it on my LinkedIn or whatever, although I don't post very much. But let me share a personal story as to why I joined SG Innovate. Because about 10 plus years ago, when my daughter was only 7 or 8, the then CEO thing to help the Singapore tech ecosystem, the startup ecosystem. We have big corporates, we come here, they do manufacturing, etc., but we don't have any good startups. And this idea of just importing startups from Silicon Valley or whoever who just want to use Singapore as a launching ground for the whole wider Asia is not enough for us as a very small country. So can you imagine 10 years down the road, Alex is off trying to find a job and she can't find what she wants to do. You know, you can say or not to do, right? You can only ask that question if you have the resources. If you don't, oh, then too bad, you don't have any choice. So this is the reason why SG Innovate exists, is to create companies who will give our people, only 3.5 million Singaporeans, a choice as to what they want to do, be it the arts, the science, grow their companies, work in a corporate, and whatnot. And we're here to help them. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alessandro Grillini. I'm the founder and CEO of Rider. I'm here upon an invite after I won the Science Breakthrough of the Year for the venture category yesterday. What Rider does is developing a technology that is based on eye tracking, so an imaging technique that measures the eye movement at a really high speed. And we use machine learning to analyze the signals to develop non-invasive biomarkers for early detection of neurovisual disorders. Think of glaucoma, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all these diseases that are very difficult to detect at an early stage but affect billions of people worldwide. And the beauty of our technology is that it's very accessible and patient-friendly. Actually, children and elderly are our main use cases, and we can deploy this technology pretty much everywhere, not only inside hospitals. And the reason why I'm here also at the Sciencepreneurship panel is because I have a PhD myself in computational neuroscience. I was the one who invented the technology, so my name is on the patent, and I took that thing right from the day zero of working in the lab all the way to the market. So I can, well, share a bit of my perspective and challenges of what it means to being a sciencepreneur, if we can use that very difficult word to pronounce.
Thank you, Alessandro. And Alessandro's technology is watching you all to see if you're engaged at this program. We're looking at your eye tracking. Not really, but Gabrielle is. So Gabrielle is going to be our scribe today. So if you want to get yourself up on the screen here with a question later on, make sure it's a good one, and she'll only put good stuff up there. So that's putting pressure on us as well, Juliana. So let's get started. One of the things I want to start with was you, Thane, because I read a paper you wrote called the Day One Project. And it reminded me that one of the things that countries need, just like organizations, is extrinsic pressure. And the space race was an extrinsic pressure for the US to go, we need to get our act together in science, so we need to bring science into the country, into the curriculum. And you've identified that, well, we need to go back and do that all over again. Let's tell our audience about that, your experience.
Oh, for sure. So I guess my experience is also really personal in that I wanted to drive my own innovation out of the university I was doing my PhD at, and found firsthand what the barriers were. And so in a lot of instances, our PhDs don't know about the commercialization process, and those that do don't often get through it. But your point is quite valid as well, so that becomes a national problem that we need to think about solving with new programs. So in the 50s, when the US was responding to the Sputnik moment, they created a National Defense Education Act, and actually that had a PhD program in it which had some unique characteristics. And so that kind of program led to the fields of electrical engineering and chemical engineering, and the same thing could be argued happened with computer science, with the dynamic between ARPA and the first computer science PhD. So you're absolutely right. When that kind of pressure comes in, then suddenly we have to innovate, and we put our institutions in a different position to respond differently to innovators. And that's what we're trying to encourage now with the Venture Science Doctorate. We absolutely believe we should run some of these culture experiments and run the playbooks that have worked before for governments. So we're currently, we've shared our thinking with 4 governments. In the UK, the Minister for Science has said that this kind of program is crucial at the micro level for individual career paths and at the macro level. And we're working with Innovate UK. In Japan, we're published as best practice in PhD workforce growth. And in the Bahamas, we just launched a National Venture Science Doctorate. And the Prime Minister, I was very touched because I'm from there originally, came out and said that, you know, the Venture Science Doctorate is our chance to reimagine the Bahamian story, which is the kind of thing that you kind of shed a proud tear and you say, oh my gosh, like.
Yeah, that reinvention is so important. And reading all your stories and doing my research on all of you, I was reminded of the work of Thomas Kuhn. And it just comes to mind time and time again. So for those who haven't read, the whole idea of scientific revolutions They don't happen because people suddenly kind of go, oh, this is a great new idea. It's more because the old tend to die out over time, or as the German physicist Max Planck put it, science advances one funeral at a time. Now, we don't want that to happen. We want people to actually change mindsets, but that takes a systemic view. So you need every player involved, and that's what I've been so struck by all these programs. And if you fast forward from your world to a world that you're occupying today, Lisa, you have had this bedded in for some amount of time. You've had multiple players involved, including the government, huge support from the government, and it's in a way beaming light for so many of us to see what it can look like. Maybe you'll tell us a bit about KTH and what you're seeing in Sweden.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So as I said before, KTH, we are a technical university, and we are based in the city center of Stockholm. We have some campuses outside Stockholm as well, but it's a very, we are quite a kind of a core facility for innovation, both in our ecosystem in Stockholm, but also we are very connected also with, I see some friends here from Unternehmertum that we have worked together for many, many years. But I think that what sets us apart a little bit is what I said before. It's about that we try to enable entrepreneurship instead of controlling it and maximizing profits from it. And our university, we are a very applied university. We do basic research as well, but working with industry and working with innovation lies at the core of the research we do. And we don't even talk about that we do innovation. This is the way how we do research and innovation. Research and, you hear me saying the wrong thing, but this is how we do education and research. So this is embedded in this. And we know, and I know there are also a lot of papers on this, that researchers that have experience with actually bringing things to the market, they become better scientists. It doesn't depend on if they succeed or not. The journey of bringing things to the market is very valuable for them. But we support a lot of teams every year, so it's around 400 new teams that start their journey with our support department every year. And about 10% of them become what we call successful outcomes. It doesn't mean that 90% are unsuccessful. It's learnings. And what we see is that since we are a university, we have around 15,000 students and about 5,000 employees. And if you look at the numbers, since it is 400 ideas per year, and behind every idea is usually 4 or 5 people, there is a lot of people in our faculty that are in our program. And if I go to any department at KTH and I visit one of our fika rooms, which is very important in Sweden, there are always at least 1 or 2 people have been part of our program. And I think that's been very important for us because we know that we are very known there. There are a lot of experienced people that have tried to bring things to the market with our support. And we see that this is building the culture at the university. And I think this is something that we have seen grown more and more interested over time. But we also see now that I know that one of the panels later on will also talk about kind of the top management of the university. Where do they come from? I could say our vice president, he started his first company with support from us, and they are now one of the fastest growing companies in Sweden, and they're building there on the stock market and so on. So those are the type of people that actually get high positions within academia, and I think that's also part of shaping the entire system.
One of the things that I thought about when you and I had a chat beforehand was that you can't get somebody to learn entrepreneurship by learning it, by looking at a screen, etc. And this getting your hands dirty, rather than being declarative learning, it's behavioral learning is so important to actually understand that. And that's something that you seem to have there, that people aren't afraid of the failure that Benoit talked about as well. It's actually embedded in it. You understand you fail your way towards success. Maybe you'll share a little bit about that mindset change.
Yeah, I think one thing that we've said from start is that everything we do is extracurricular activities. This is not something you do for credit. You come with us with real problems and real solutions that you actually want to try to bring to the market. And that's been kind of a key, I think, also to the success, because there is a clear incentive that if you succeed, this is something that you will learn from, and it might be that you can spin out a company. And I think this is, if you have all these, I'm all for programs where you actually get credits as well, But I think to actually learning by doing is very valuable. And as I said, many of the we have a lot of recurring customers, and they've been for us twice or three times or more before, and then perhaps the third or the fifth time they will actually succeed to bring something to the market. And we also see in some groups we have professors that have been very experienced. Some of them have started as many as 10 to 15 to 20 companies, and they bring their PhDs, they have a research project, and they start looking at, is this something that you also could spin out a company? And then the professor stays at the university, and the PhD students, they are part of the research, and they are also, as an extracurricular activity, actually trained to become entrepreneurs by actually building this company, and then they spin it out. And if the researchers are not the best talented people to become the CEO, we actually help them to recruit. So we bring in, Stockholm is a great place also to look for experienced entrepreneurs. And what we see is that when we put out ads looking for joining in new quantum startups or another one, we got a really good number of applicants, or very skilled people that we bring in as co-founders of this company. And then researchers stay in academia and produce more papers, but also more startups and more spin-offs in the future. And I think that's been working very well for us.
Brilliant. Just writing down an idea here. Dating app for founders of startups, Finland and Sweden. So moving on. There's a Chinese saying, a Chinese proverb that I love, that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is now. And I always think about it where if you think about the education system, sometimes we've trained people, and then by the time they're finished, the entire ecosystem has changed. And you, Julie, have a very, very systematic approach, data-driven approach to finding troughs and gaps, and then training for those skills. So you're actually ready. You have that tree nicely matured for when you need it. And you were telling me beforehand that this is because you're very, very looking towards the future from a country as Singapore, and looking at to go, what kind of skills will we need in 4 to 8 years, etc. Maybe you'll tell us a bit about that, what you were telling me beforehand.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Aidan. I think maybe a step back. Before you can be structured, you need to understand what's the problem. So the first thing that you need to do, I think, is to go out there and talk to the startups. Talk to academia, and find out what's the gap we're talking about, and then do that data-driven research to prove or disprove what you think is the hypothesis. You don't want to start out with a certain bias that you think that this is the issue, and you tackle the issue, and 10 years later you realize, and thousands of dollars or millions of dollars later, realize you tackled the wrong problem. It's not even a problem, right? So a lot of the startups, sadly, from academia that come out of universities, always tell me they can't find talent. And I'm like, why? You're sitting in an institution where you churn out the best talent. I mean, the NUS and NTU and whatnot, they're like top 50. NUS is top 10, I think. But it doesn't matter. I think the talent issue stands, and essentially is what kind of talent that you're looking for. So in some ways, when startup founders, young startup founders tell me that talent is an issue, I actually ask them more questions. I try to find out exactly what's the problem they're trying to solve. And then when you hear enough rumblings in the background, enough startups telling you, for example, we can't find this type of talent, we can't find that type of talent, then you do what you need to do, which is get more data. Because I work for a government that needs to have a lot of data before they're convinced about something. So that's when you go out there, you get the data points, and then you say, yes, what is the area we're looking at? So for example, if you're looking at biotech, right? When we are looking at potentially how many spin-outs are coming out from your my universities, in terms of the companies, in terms of the talent that they need, what type of talent? Is it at the junior level, the mid-level, or the senior level? Because C-suite talent is very different from your junior guy. So then you start thinking, okay, maybe for the junior guy, based on the expected number of companies that are coming out, I need, 5x. At the middle level, I need 2x. And at the senior level, I need 1x, right, for example. And that's when you start doing these programs. And we have programs for that. But to be honest, when the company started, when we started on this talent thingy development, a team of 3, I had no plan. no strategy. Anyone who knows me, I'm the type that probably get lost, and it's fine because I learn new things along the way. And the team was really, we survived on Excel spreadsheets. There was no data behind it. But the motive was very simple and stays true, which is we are here to help our deep tech startups flourish, to grow out of Singapore for the world. So that is something that continues to be the heart and beat and soul for the talent team. Having said that, there's also the community part. Because when you're in a very nascent area, nascent technology, most public figures and talent, they won't know about it. They won't join. So they join your moonshots, they join your Meta, but they won't join your small startup size 5 people. So that's when you need to go out there and knock on doors and say, hey, do you know about this? We have networking activities, we have hackathons. We just have everything under the sun just to get that message out there that this is something potentially that you want to look into. So these are the things that we do. For the last 7 years, obviously, we have a little bit more structure now. I have a team of 29. Yeah, from 3 to 29. It's a lot of pain, but what can I say? End of the day, I think it's because we are effective. And I'm an economist at heart. So if you checked out my LinkedIn profile, you have seen my first degree was actually in economics. And if you know, I always tell my staff, I'm willing to pay you this, but you need to give me your 10x. Whatever you want, you just need to give me 10x. So that's the bottom line, I think.
Brilliant. I'm always struck by the polymathic nature. So everybody has different skill sets in their background as well. That idea I was saying about innovation happens at the intersections. And looking at everybody's background on the panels today, everybody has that type of background. So I've seen you nodding along. So firstly, Alessandro, everybody was very modest about their intros, but he was breakthrough startup in the science category. So maybe we give him a round of applause. Yesterday. From your perspective, I saw you nodding because you're like kind of going, A, I've experienced this already, maybe from the education perspective, but B, I have this ahead of me trying to find talent for my startup. And particularly, I thought I saw you nodding when Julie was talking about that idea of you have a driving kind of North Star of the reason you're doing this. And that becomes almost a recruiting mechanism as well. I'm putting words in your mouth there, but I could see your body language there. I was using your tracking on you.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think that actually helped our recruiting strategy because surprisingly for us, recruiting has never been a problem. But I think one of the contributing factors for which it has never been a problem is that we start all our job posting ads with this sentence. If you want to change the world, you're going to work in the right place. Simple as that. And then we have an astounding amount of applications for really high-quality applications. And the first question that I ask any person that I'm interviewing for a job position is, why us, why now? And depending on that, usually I can immediately steer if the person is a right cultural fit for us or not. Even before checking the hard skills, because of course, I mean, as a deep tech startup, most of our company is actually made by engineers with PhDs coming from different fields. So again, the multidisciplinarity and the different backgrounds come into place. Our latest algorithm has been developed by an astrophysicist, and our core technology actually comes from NASA. So and now it's applied to a completely different sector. But the motivation is really the North Star in this case. And that's something that I probe from the moment zero. For even before like a person joins in, that has to be the North Star, because working in a startup is incredibly hard. And it's something that I personally underestimated significantly, because I'm one of those fools that started the company alone, against all kind of advice. I also had a fantastic timing because I started 1 month before COVID. So I'm also an extremely lucky person. But the team is really where the magic happens, and it never gets easier. There are challenges, but the challenges are really stage dependent. The challenges that I had at the beginning, that were mostly related, for instance, to intellectual property. And hearing the Swedish model, I'm so jealous of what they have there, because I wished I had something like this. I would have saved at the first year, and I spent most of the money in lawyers litigating to getting my own patent. So that was quite a horror story on its own. But then the challenges continuously evolved. It's really a never-ending stream of challenges. So you really need to have this resilience in place, and only a strong motivation can give you that.
From the, you were saying your North Star, your mission is attracting people, but from a skill set perspective, so going right back to where we started with Thane, the idea of people with the right skill sets. Are those skill sets hard skills? Those skill sets hard skills? Are they skills like STEM skills, for example? Or are they becoming increasingly soft skills where they have this agile, open mindset?
I would say they have to be STEM skills, depending, of course, on the position. But if we're hiring for engineering or like a data scientist, you can't get away without having a solid STEM foundation. But the soft skills are fundamental on the long run. We don't want to have people that are those crazy geniuses, but they bring in like a toxic culture, because they are actually detrimental. They are like they add negative talent to the team.
Yeah, stay tuned for a panel on that later on. Julie, I saw you nodding there.
Yeah, so I think I really understand that. So if you can imagine like the iceberg, right? And the top of what you see that basically, you know, did not sink the Titanic, by the way. So when you see that top part, is the hard skills. It's easy because you can test whether this person has the right skills or not. The knowledge, the ability, coding, etc. Then after that, subsequently below that, is the ability to execute what they know. So sometimes people are just good absorbers, but they can't really translate that, you know. And then the base, which is the big bulk of the iceberg, and that was the one that sunk the Titanic, was the behaviors, the motives, things that you cannot easily suss out in an interview, especially if it's only a 1 hour interview. And if you're looking for the best talent, then the question is, what exactly do you mean by best talent? What are you looking out for? I would ask you to go back, look at your team, and see what are the skills you're missing. What's the gap now versus, you know what I mean? Like hiring, oh, this is what I need, But have you gone back to think, oh, this is what I have, take a stock take, this is what I need to grow the company to this stage. And some of these relationships take years to build. Just because you want to hire somebody in 5 years, or 3 years potentially, it's a relationship you want to build now, because the person that you want to hire 3 years from now is not probably going to say yes if you want them and they're really good. So I think that's something that, at the end of the day, we need to remember, that we need to connect as human beings. And it's easy to forget that we're all just digits and it's a transaction. Yeah, but it's not. You need to build that relationship. You need to have a much longer viewpoint of this, right? And that's the problem with startup founders. It's very much the reaction here and now. How do I build? Yeah.
One of the things that I think we forget in either corporate innovation or startups or trying to drive sciencepreneurship is that businesses go through cycles. And when it gets to a perspective of you've hired barbarians and you get to the point of I need bureaucrats, the barbarians have done their jobs to get you there, because you need a different mindset, you need more administration in the organization, but you don't get rid of the barbarians, you need that mindset still inside the organization. I saw you nodding.
Yeah, we think a lot about like what is the archetypal sciencepreneur at Deep Science Ventures. And so this question of skills is something that we get very nerdy about. And we have a matrix where we look at determination, magnetism, and expertise. And each of those 3 decompose into another 3 subcategories. And each of the 9 have indicators, so that through case studies and through interviews, we know exactly what we're looking for. So someone with a magnetic kind of characteristic has concise storytelling, is persuasive, is empathetic. And there are things that we can look for to decode that, so that whether you're coming from a STEM background or an arts background, whether you're coming from, the West or the global South, regardless of your gender or all of these considerations, to really embrace diversity of thought, we need to know what traits we're looking for in people, not just the skills that they might have acquired through an educational background that they were particularly privileged to access.
Tell me what kind of question you would ask to try and find out some of those concise storytellings. Tell me a story.
Well, we're not going to see a lot of concise storytelling today, right? Because we're all trying to tell our stories here about very complex organizations. But, I mean, with that one, you can just listen to someone. So you see this a lot in academia. This is one of the things that culturally it's been really important to try and shift with the venture science doctorate. In academia, the PhD has spent years learning a mode of communication which is very long, jargon-rich, and not very sensitive to the response of the crowd. And so that's not a criticism, that's just observation from my own PhD experience. And I had to unlearn a lot coming in and working with Deep Science Ventures. But to pitch your company to an investor, you need the exact opposite mode of communication. So we're really, our innovation ecosystems are at a loss when we've trained all of our sort of, if you like, best scientists to exactly communicate wrong to the people who could get their technology into the world with them. And I think, you know, communication is one piece, but there's a whole other piece around culture, where in a lot of instances, not at KTH, I'm sure, professors are almost embarrassed. We see this a lot in the States, ironically. If their PhDs go into entrepreneurship, this is like, well, you know, didn't they publish better than that? Like, couldn't they get an academic position? So there are a lot of these sort of systemic hurdles that we work really hard to think, how would we redesign and embrace a more supportive culture, not one where the expertise that we were looking for was intrinsically linked to like toxic culture that you sometimes get in the academic setting.
I'm going to come back to you on VSD in a moment, but there's something you said there that links to what Lisa was talking about, was that you have a CTO that's come through KTH. They're brilliant, but again, they might lack this real world or the right storytelling to communicate, to sell a vision to somebody else. So this is where the partnership and that dating app that's now live is very valuable.
Yeah,
questions, by the way, from the audience, very welcome.
I agree what all my panelists have said here, but I think it's of course the STEM skills are extremely important, and of course most PhDs from KTH have a background in STEM. But also, as I said, we are working with this project for a long time, so it's also a time where we see some people actually grow into the role. We learn how to pitch, of course. We learn all the other skills, and we also we have to be able to work with the project. The technology or the idea has to be connected to what we do at KTH. But when it comes to the team, we says that only 25% of the ownership must lie with the KTH person, which means that 75% can come from other places. And we love diverse teams. And I think even if STEM, of course, when it comes to deep tech, are extremely important, I think what Google talked about, you have kind of arts, you have humanities, there are a lot of other fields that are extremely important. And marketing, we have one of the top business schools in Stockholm. Of course, we are collaborating with them as well. But I think that people can grow into these roles. Not always, but we have seen a lot of excellent CEOs that have become really business savvy during the time we have worked together with them. And I think you shouldn't say that excellence researcher could not become excellent entrepreneurs. Yeah. I have a lot of examples of that they actually can. But as a university, of course, we don't want to lose our top talents, especially if you have a professor that spins out during his or her career 5 or 10 or 15 companies. That's much better for society than if they leave with one company.
I think that's something that a lot of, certainly students I lecture to, struggle with, is that they're either doing something that they think somebody else wants them to do, maybe a parent, they're living to somebody else's script, or else they think that they'll have one skill and that skill will be enough. And McKinsey brought in this concept of the T-shaped worker, which is like you have one strong skill and then you have many other skills that might connect to that. But you kind of need almost like two now. And it's like almost like an O-shape or a U-shaped worker that you need more skills all mixed together. And this talks to VSD.
Sure, we say M-shape a lot because we like depth at multiple points, maybe not to the same extreme as you would get if you only worked on one niche for... I see, Benoit, you're laughing at something.
No, we use T-shape a lot. T-shape, I was just thinking about that.
Get that on the board. Who got credit for that one?
No, I'm not surprised because there's a lot of the things that you talk about, tackling the monkey, etc. We really have a focus on the hardest part of the problem. So we want people to solve global challenges, and you can't do that if you build the pedestal and everybody quits. But the venture science doctorate, I think, was more to the point of the question. We set out to create an institution and a PhD program which had 4 key qualities: venture-focused, outcome-centric, distributed institution, and diversity first. So being venture-focused means that we train to create a or multiple science companies, and we train through the process of venture creation. So we spoke about how you really have to learn through real-world conversation. Actually, the classroom has very little to do with it. If you want to create a science company, you're out there speaking to business leaders and policymakers and understanding the space. To be outcome-centric, it means that we're using a specific process to reverse engineer from a global outcome, say a cure for cancer, down to the opportunity areas that we care most about to get us there. So is it vascular? Is it the microenvironment of the tumor with the factors there? Which of the key areas will get us there? And then in each of those areas, we need to define specific research projects and approaches from first principles. And when you have that system, you can then use a ranking process to say, this is the best project to get me back up to the global outcome. Being distributed institution means that we're currently working with over 30 university partners, corporate partners. So there's a really large map across continents of research spaces that, as you prototype, you access and work with the right labs at the right time. So the lab that I was in at the University of Edinburgh was a kind of special environment. We brought 3 universities together, and we had physicists, biologists, image analysis people, machine learning, all in that one environment. But that's a freak exception. I think very often the whole department is more or less shaped around one expertise. And so if we want that dynamism, if we want people to be able to repeat some of the dynamics of that 1950s PhD that the States launched and created fields, then we need these programs to be portable. So why shouldn't you be able, especially in our kind of Zoom world, to access different expertise, different scientists, and draw that into your technology as you go? And then being diversity first is really close to our hearts and important in today for science innovation, for workforce growth, for social mobility. And we do that partly through this recruitment piece where we thought very carefully about how to remove bias from the people that we're interviewing. But also partly we actually set metrics for ourselves to make sure that this is on the KPIs. And so we're trying to recruit cohorts that are 50% gender equal, 50% female, and a 50% ethnically diverse as well.
Fantastic. And that's about neurodiversity as well, that intersection
For sure.
of disciplines.
Ultimately, it's about diversity of thought.
Yeah, exactly.
And you find that people have developed different strategies because of the shape of their background. And sometimes that mix of strategies gives you a much stronger company at the end of the day.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Can I take a question? One question. I was at an event once here, I'll grab a mic, and there was an unhappy clown that came on if you went over time and started making a sad face.
Well,
I thought the clock was broken, by the way. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, yeah, I'm Rajiv from Aarhus University in Denmark, and I don't think you will have time to answer this, so I'm just going to put it as a thought exercise, maybe for us. You mentioned something around, or the entire panel kind of discussing about, PhDs having a very specific talent and not fitting, for example, how the venture world looks like. If I just try and draw a parallel with, let's say, the way how we now treat, for example, feminism and how we treat, for example, how women are treated, we always say, change the society, not the woman. Why can't we do that for PhDs? Right? Why can't our venture capitalists, for example, have a higher level of science understanding, at the same time develop a scientist who has a higher level of financial understanding as well?
I mean, I think it's a great comment. Most of the people at Deep Science Ventures have PhDs. So we're really talking about how do we solve global challenges, not sort of configure scientists for our firm or whatever. But I think your point about how do we marry these two very different worlds is an exciting one that we've all came here to think about. And ultimately, what we believe we can do with this kind of program is welcome a whole new category of people into PhD training who wouldn't otherwise be incentivized to do it because they don't feel like that's the next step for them, or they don't want to pursue a kind of very long process that is not going to get them a company created. So for sure we need a portfolio of approaches. We will always need basic research and people who are T-shaped. But in the case of solving global challenges and engineering programs of R&D to deliver technological solutions, we need M-shaped people. And we're seeing, just quickly, senior director at MIT, Bill von Villen, has said that the kinds of projects that we want to launch through the advanced research project agencies require that new kind of leader, not just scientific skills, but also technology fundraising, technology demonstration. These are not skill sets that are currently in the talent base, and we're working very hard embedding elements of the ARPA model into our training to bring them there.
I'm going to grab that thought because we're going to carry that on to the next panel, which is about leadership and developing mindsets of entrepreneurship, or sciencepreneurship. I want to thank our panel, Thane, Lisa, Julie, and Alessandro. Thank you.